Welcome to the Avenue 9 Human First AI Marketing Podcast. I have two very special guests this week, Badri, Veera, and Karl from Crigloo. They have a platform which is really awesome. It is optimizing your marketing, your advertising across platforms using AI, optimizing your budget, saving you money, saving you a ton of time and data crunching, which I think is really exciting. But before we get to that, I want to ask you two about the human first side of things. As somebody that's building a tool, Badri, did you think about how you can optimize or enhance the human marketers and small business and agencies? Or is this something where you're trying to replace everybody and be like, you just give us the money and let AI take care of it and you never touch it?
Okay, great. Mike, firstly, super excited to talk to your audience and you. So as you mentioned, we are an AI marketing platform called Crigloo.com. Crigloo stands for Creative Igloo. Igloo is a protective space. So we provide a protective space for marketers to be able to leverage the power of AI without having to replace humans. This is not a tool that's going to say, look, you don't need any marketers. You put in dollars and then out comes results. This is not that tool. So this is going to be a human assist tool where the humans are actively in the loop, so to speak, and AI is just going to catalyze your marketing in terms of getting leads, getting better conversion, better revenue if you're directly shooting for e-commerce kind of platform. So as a small business, your activity is to generate revenue with a minimal amount of expense with a small marketing team. This tool is just going to be another marketer for you, rather than a replacement for existing marketing team.
And then the flip side of that too, I guess, Badri, is you don't have to be a programmer and know how to create agents and integrations and stuff either. That I'm assuming it's pretty easy to sync all that up.
Absolutely. You got to be like a high flying programmer. I'm just kidding with you. So you don't need to know programming per se. Absolutely not. You just need to be tech savvy about using tools, but which I think most of the small businesses and marketers are. So it's a fairly straight, dumbed down tool, if I can say that. And all you have to know is certain basic marketing terms like search marketing, pay-per-click, social media marketing. How do you influence on social media by having free posts and stuff like that? So the basic stuff that most of us in the digital world are familiar with, nothing fancy. We might use some occasional terms like pixel and stuff like that, but that's we'll explain adequately with videos and stuff like that, what they are and what this.
Yeah, I would think most professional marketers would know those kind of terms. You're probably doing that already if you're doing any kind of advertising and marketing. But that's what I love about these AI tools now is really they're ready for you to jump in and start using it. So John, I want to throw to you as the BD guy here in our call. I think this is really interesting for people in still being able to express themselves. They're not handing over all of the reins, but it's really getting them to their goals faster. Is that fair?
Exactly. The way that I like to think of it is that, we're not out to replace a practitioner by any stretch, but really enable the practitioners themselves to elevate their game, to be more strategic and less relying on just pulling the levers, actually thinking through how this is going to reach their target audience in the most effective and efficient way possible.
And I wanted to ask you about the use cases here a little bit, because like I said, I'm assuming anybody that's a professional marketer has done some SEM before. They've done some pay-per-click ads. They've got other stuff running. They're probably doing a lot of social media with different posts and stuff. So how is AI helping us when we already had kind of a lot of data at our fingertips already?
Badri, you wanna take that one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is a plethora of channels like PPC, social media, blogging, YouTube, etc. The main channel is a lot of these campaigns are typically run in silos. So for example, here is Google search. Mike's going to run Google search. John's going to run, social media. Emily is going to run, blogging. And the teams sometimes don't talk to each other, or even if they talk to each other, it's post facto. What this tool does is, look, at the end of the day, as a business owner, as a small business owner, your job is interested in how to maximize revenue. with least amount of expense. What this tool does is figures out where you should deploy your capital, so you actually maximize your bang for your buck.
Can you talk a little bit about how often it's doing that? So I had a question jump into my head, which is, you're right. For the last 10 years or so, I've been working on a big team that we have a social media team and we have a pay-per-click team. And then, every week or so, but usually more often like monthly, we'll look at the cost per acquisition and we'll say, well, it's about, we're spending about $50 a conversion on LinkedIn and it's $45 on Facebook. So we'll move some money over to Facebook. But if we were using AI, how often would that happen, or how would it better spend our money?
Absolutely. Great question, firstly. So the way to think of it is that, this is like an orchestra in which you have different instruments, if you will. And how do you make the instruments synchronize so you hear great music? So you imagine that you're an orchestra where you're playing violin separately, and then you're playing, some other instrument, like, I don't know, pick an instrument like piano separately, and then you're putting it together. It's not going to sound like music. And that's what is happening right now. And what we are trying to do is, how do you play these instruments synchronously so you hear the actual symphony of marketing? And the way we do that is we run something called unified marketing campaigns. And what you do is you have one set of audience, and you can split that audience into personas in our tool. That's what we call it. And each persona, you can think of it as like a marketing archetype. So this could be a sports enthusiast. This could be into arts and music. This person could be something else, like a science fiction maniac. And like different audiences will see different types of ads. And by doing that on different channels, we are able to serve the right ad to the right audience on the right channel. And all of that is done in one single box, in which your social media campaign, your PPC campaign, your blogs, all of that are sort of singing from the same song sheet and singing in unison.
I love that. And it's got me excited because what I help people do, and I think what's fun as a marketer, is creating those campaigns. Like, you can get into ChatGPT and you can dig into these personas and you can have it ask you questions or write about stuff. Or if you're selling to professional services like engineers and architects, you can say, tell me all about engineers. What are their top groups? What platforms are they on? What ads would resonate? What are their pain points? And you could create really cool graphics and ads with AI. And so I can create a short video, or I can create a pay-per-click ad in a few seconds. And I can change this up where I think 2 to 10 years ago, you had to do all of that by hand. And it was a lot of work to swap ads out and like to create new creative, or even do the research. Have to pay big agencies or expensive creatives to come up and do the marketing strategy and everything. So John, I wanted to ask you maybe what you're most excited about the current state of AI and marketing these days, and what do you think the opportunities are?
I mean, the book is far from written at this point in time. I mean, we really are at an exciting time when it comes to AI, and really just scratching the surface on how it could actually improve, whether that's business practices or healthcare. And personally, I look at AI in the area of health, and I think that's really going to be a remarkable game changing evolution, and really how we treat illnesses, track illnesses, and fight them. So to me, that's one area. But also, when you look at anything like what Crigloo is doing, when you're looking at how can we make this process more efficient, that's really where I think you're going to see the gains and benefits.
Yeah, I think it's that cross-platform. It's interesting you brought up the health analogy, because I think the same thing there, right? It's not like our our chiropractor has the same information that our general practitioner does, or that just all these systems aren't working together. And now with AI, you can get like stuff that just humans aren't good at, the sheer quantity and different systems. Like, nothing was talking to each other, and it's really interesting what we can do now.
Absolutely. And then I think that it's the speed at which we're going to be able to do things, which, we were able to take on a significant amount more. And that's just going to enable people to move much faster than we have been through, more manual means.
And Badri, I know you can nerd out a little bit on what's happening behind the scenes. So I think a fun technical discussion might be like, how is all of this happening? I'm assuming these platforms have APIs and stuff now, or AI can at least like interpret different types of data where you had to be really specific, maybe. Again, just like 2 years ago, that table had to be formatted. They all had to be like, each API had to be aligned perfectly. And there were some platforms that might get you some cross reporting or integrations, but not like now where AI can kind of analyze in a completely different way. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I want to kind of give you a little genesis of AI, if I could, and then speak to the current state of the art. So, before, the onset of LLMs and ChatGPT, the way AI worked is you had two types of, learning. One is called supervised learning, where you had a, set of data, and then you had something called labeling, which is it a cat? Yes or no? And you would have this, what I call supervised sort of table that you would feed to AI, and then AI would analyze, okay, these are cats, these are not cats, these are actually some other animal. And then once it learns from that data, then it can figure out, if you give a new image after the training, it would be able to say, okay, this is a cat, it's a modified cat, but then it's still a cat, and then this one is not. So, and it was, even though it's a cat, it's a powerful example of, if you give adequate training, AI can figure out, more things, not just cats. That is historically called supervised learning, where the machine is getting supervised. And then you had something called unsupervised learning, which is, used for classification. For example, in marketing, let's say you want to classify how to divide up the US market in different geographies. You can do it by geography, that's fairly straightforward, or you could do it by product. And AI can figure out how to kind of divvy up your market. That's another way. You could do like unsupervised learning. The third way, which is the new way, which is large language models, where what ChatGPT and unlike what they have done is they have fed the computer vast quantities of text. And what these essentially does is, if you feed it one single word, it says, what is the probability of these words being next to it? And it looks at the vast repository of training and says, the next word is more likely to be here rather than some other word. And then it keeps repeating that chain of reasoning and creates this complicated text. But if you look at under the hood and look at it, the reasoning is fairly simple. You start with a single, what I call a seed word, or a label, or a token. That's usually called a token. And then it figures out what the next token is. And more practically speaking, as a marketer, what would you need these LLMs for? If you look at it, you need it for creating the text. For example, if you're putting out an ad, you need text, right, to speak about your product or speak about your business. Historically, you had marketers spend a lot of time going and talking, doing surveys and doing all that stuff. With the likes of LLMs, what you're able to do is you can instantly create multiple versions of your ads and figure out which ad is actually resonating with the audience, and then dynamically change it. And this type of stuff is great, no question about it, using the raw ChatGPT. What Crigloo has done is taken that to the next level, where we take specific data about your website. For example, if you're selling barbecue, actually, this is a customer that we are servicing right now. They're selling barbecue out of Kansas, as an example. And we would take the contents of their specific website and enrich ChatGPT. In other words, it is a contextual ChatGPT. It's not the raw ChatGPT that you can go get from the market and plug it in. And that's not going to be like, we all have specific knowledge. So think about it this way, right? You have the generic knowledge that ChatGPT provides, which is great, but then it doesn't have the specific context for your business. And what we have done is we have taken the specific context and enriched the LLMs or the ChatGPTs, if you think about it. And this specific technique is called RAG, which is a complicated nerd out term. If you're really wanting to know what this is how do you retrieve information which is augmented. So it's called retrieval augmented generation. So in other words, simple, in less geek speak, essentially what it does is it takes the context into account and creates text which is appropriate for your business. And if it's a graphic, for example, if it's a creative or a graphic that you need to show, it will enrich it using your specific website. So in other words, contextual AI is the way to go, and that's what Crigloo does.
Yeah, I love the way you explained that, because I kind of see it in three phases that you described. One is we've had things like Siri and stuff for a long time with the voice activation where it could understand words, but it was manually programmed. Every single one of the responses was typed in by a human. It's like, if you hear the words, what and time together, you respond with the current, time. And it was all done by hand. And then these LLMs trained on like all of the language and everything on the internet and said, all right, we're going to teach the, Siri or whatever, they all have different names now, but ChatGPT, and we're going to teach it all of the words and all of the context and have just billions of parameters so that it can respond to whatever you say. And that's helpful. It's definitely really cool. But in your specific case, if you say, oh, what is my, what's the missing ingredient in my barbecue recipe here? It may not know your specific recipe, or it might not be relevant to what you're trying to do, which I think is the cool part. Is like, now that it has all of the world's knowledge, we need to focus it in and learn how to like write prompts and give it tasks and give it specific information that it might not have been trained on, and give it the context it needs to give you a better answer.
Right.
And
absolutely.
I love that, because we're kind of treating it like a marketing partner. If I was your marketing consultant, which I can be, avenue9.com. No, if I'm your marketing consultant and you ask me a question like, should I advertise on Facebook or Google? I would say, well, it depends. Like, what are you selling? Who's your target audience? What's your average cost per acquisition? How much your profit margin do you have in each deal? Like, I would have to ask a lot of contextual information in order to give you a good answer. And
Absolutely.
the AI still will as well, which is why I think AI won't replace humans in general, because a lot of people that are not professional marketers don't know what context to give it yet. It's like, you don't even know what question to ask, which is, it could give you any answer, but you just don't know the right question to ask.
Exactly.
And so we still need specific human expertise and empathy and context.
Absolutely. I think to think of it this way, right? Like back in the day, you would have a team of people figuring out what the right ad or the right creative is. Here, with this LLM kind of approach, you can dynamically create, provided you give it the right context, which I just talked about. It can create a set of ads, like dynamically decide which ad is actually working for your specific set of audience or personas, and then start switching the money. Of course, you can also pause and play and do all that stuff. But at the end of it, you still have humans in the loop. The human is not going to be cut out. I don't think so. And you can be more productive. For example, your business is selling barbecue. You can focus on how to make your barbecue more efficient, and how to be like thermally better, or like how to cook better, how to be taste better. I mean, all that stuff which is your business. That's still your domain, and your domain knowledge is specific to what you're doing and what your business is. AI is obviously not going to replace that anytime soon, but what it is going to do is it's going to augment your marketing team, in this specific example, and make them more productive. So in other words, if you're selling X number of products, you can actually sell more, or possibly do that job much more efficiently.
All right, John, next one's for you. Besides Crigloo, what is your favorite, some of your favorite AI tools that you're using in your job or role right now?
I mean, I think that anything that can be utilized, like I said, to be more efficient, but any of the language-based tools I find to have been extremely helpful, particularly looking at business development when you have to respond to, really extensive RFPs and things along those lines. It helps save a lot of time, but you still have to go through. You still have to put the human element into it. You can't take the output as a one-for-one, you really do need to customize it, but it goes a long way in saving time across the board.
What's your take? Are you ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity? What's your go-to?
I've used ChatGPT the most.
Yeah, me too. Badri, how about you? Besides Crigloo, what are some of your favorite
I
AI?
think the kind of tools that I've experimented with, you have Anthropic, which is promoted by Amazon and now Google as well. Then you have, Claude. Then you have Perplexity, which is essentially like an amalgamation. Now you have, DeepSeek. I don't want to give data to China, but that's, out in the market. And DeepSeek is sort of a game changer in some narrow sense. So I try a variety of tools. And then I think for us, the main thing is context. How to get the right context. So your AI is going to be spitting out the right relevant information for your particular business. So I think that's key to succeed in this, especially if everyone, so think about it this way, right? It's like an arms race. If every company is going to use AI, how are you going to start? At the end of the day, you still have, products to sell and revenue to make, right? So my plea to the businesses is think about it in that sense. Don't think AI is going to immediately get you revenue. You have to stand out from the pack. And how do you stand out? Give AI the relevant context. And then it can create more relevant ads or relevant marketing material or relevant promotional stuff. So you can actually stand out from the pack. Just having AI is like, it's become table stakes now. Everyone has AI.
Yeah.
If you want to really stand out, you got to be creative. So the human element and the human creativity, which you talked about, is still going to be relevant. It's not going to be removed because if you think about it this way, right? You remove all the humans just for thought experiment and let AI do everything. If everyone is using the same AI, you as a business, how are you going to stand out? Because everyone is doing the same thing. So you have to bring in the creative element, think about it in a unique way, either on the product side or on the marketing side or on the sales side. And that is still going to remain in the human domain for years to come, in my opinion. Even though I love AI and use it every day, I still think that the human element and the human creativity is going to make us stand out.
I love that because I kind of say it this way. In a world where you can create anything, when you have all of the internet knowledge available at your fingertips, the question becomes, what are you going to create? Like, what's worth saying? If you can say anything and make anything, write a book in an afternoon, what's your book going to be about is really the hard question, not, how do you write the book? And I think that becomes a really more interesting challenge for marketers and small businesses and stuff, is like, how are we going to connect with people?
And also, like, another important thing, I think you touched on it, alluded to it earlier, which is asking the right question is actually going to become much more important than finding out the right answer, because AI can find the answer provided you prompt it right and you ask it the right question and give it the right context. And these are the things that we as a product company are trying to do. So where the prompting is going to become easier because we have lots of prompts that we give it to you. Second is we give you the context for your specific business so you can enrich the AI output a lot quicker. So those are the two things that we add on to the, so think of it as like a vanilla ice cream, which is what ChatGPT provides. We make it like a, I don't know, Mary and berry, or some sort of berry, which is kind of unique to make it specific for your business.
I think that's really cool. And I did want to ask you one kind of strategic question, which is, I think you mentioned DeepSeek, and it's fascinating that you can, now it's affordable enough that you could run it on your own machines and stuff, small enough that maybe that's a lot safer to run it on American servers and things. But as these tools become like smaller and more effective, but also these models become larger, and we're in, billions and hundreds of billions of dollars spent on these, I have a question for you here in kind of the software space, which is, it's very much that world of, if you can build software, it can write code. How you think about the strategy for Crigloo itself? Do you think like these big companies are going to gobble up all the software, or is it really about the same thing, about finding your niche and how you use AI to mix your ice cream flavor to fill a need?
Yeah, it's a great question. See, I think at the end of the day, like for us, we are an omni-channel platform, and like the likes of Google is never going to like like this morning we were looking at a report for attribution. Like in other words, let's say you use multiple channels. We were trying to figure out which channel is giving you the most bang for your buck. Google or Facebook or any of these companies are not going to be transparent. So the way we are looking at it is there is a niche for us because we are the truth teller. We say, look, Google is actually better for you in this particular audience versus Facebook. And Google is actually cheaper. I mean, I'm saying Google as an example. Don't take it literally, but take it figuratively. And that means that's one big domain, like figuring out where things are working, where things are not working. And the big tech is definitely not going to do that. That's one. The second thing is the big tech is not going to look at your specific business and give you any kind of advice. That's not going to happen, right? And that's where companies like us, like startups, can really come in and enrich your business and more specific to your business. The third broad piece is I, as a startup founder, sincerely believe innovation comes from the bottom up and not top down. Okay, because a lot of the cool stuff that small companies do doesn't get noticed until we become sizable. Then large companies come in like I don't know. I don't want to use the bad analogy, like a scavenger, and just pluck us out. That's quite possible. That's what our hope is someday. When we are noticed by the big tech, we might get acquired and stuff like that. But I still think that
I think that's a great answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And startups have a useful role. And even like look at the likes of DeepSeek. They literally had small number of people, and they didn't use as many high-end compute like from NVIDIA and stuff like that. They had lower grade computers, and unlike necessity is sort of the mother of invention. So if you have constraints as a small
they really
company,
hacked the system on that
exactly. And then like you have a small company and you have limited resources. That's what we startups do. And how do you maximize and how do you make the best use of your limited resources to provide the best value? And that's what startups tend to do. And I think startups have a unique value in the tech ecosystem, which is I think is here to stay.
Yeah. So good. I hope so too. That's what I'm trying to do, is really that small business handholding that you're right. They're not going to do. And Google might call you and they have people that try to optimize your pay-per-click, but what do you think they're really optimizing? There's a reason why they're having somebody call you and tell you to spend more on Google ads.
So think about it. Which side of your bread the butter is on. That's an important thing. So like Google is going to like push Google all day long. They're not going to like tell you blogging is actually better for you.
What you really need to do is optimize for organic search.
Exactly.
Karl, it's time for the last question, which is my favorite one to ask now, which is if you had to pick two, which AI sci-fi future do you think we will have? And which one would you pick? So if you had to pick from any futuristic movie, which one do you think is most likely to happen? And which one would you prefer?
I guess I would go with a combo. My guess would be it's somewhere in between Idiocracy and Minority Report. And I don't know which way it would go. But, I think that Badri made a good point that we're really going to have to hone in on how we ask questions to get the results that we need and that refinement. But we have all the, information in the world at our fingertips, even faster than just the dawn of the internet. So it'll be interesting to see what we do with it.
That's a great answer, because did you know there's a stat that I put in my book, Playful Humans, that you are 10% dumber if your cell phone is in the room. It doesn't even have to be turned on, but we've already outsourced part of our brain to our phone, that we don't need to remember when our next appointment is, or, our parents' phone number, or anything anymore. It's all outsourced to the phone. And now that we have AI, if you have all the world's information, that you don't have to remember anything, we may end up as in Idiocracy. And certainly our government's trying to go that direction, while the advertising agencies are going more towards Minority Report. So I think that's a great answer. Badri, do you have a favorite sci-fi future, or one that you think is most likely?
See, I think I like the two movies like Matrix and Terminator. But
oh no.
but I don't see a future of Terminator where these automatons take over the world, and like I see a future where humans are still in control, maybe like Star Trek Next Gen or something along those lines, where we still have we are still in the driver's seat, so to speak. And I think I don't think we will renege complete control and agency to the computers and AI.
Yeah.
I just don't see that. I'm an optimist by temperament, and I see a future. Of course, a lot of people are talking about Terminator, where AI is going to take over and destroy the world.
Yeah.
I see.
I mean, we're building pretty good walking around robots and dogs and stuff that are definitely.
I know. I still think that.
Now. And they made a liquid robot. Did you see the liquid robot?
Absolutely.
That was crazy.
Yeah, it's only the size of a Lego man right now, but if they perfect that is nuts. I'm with you. I think in general, look at the power that's having to be created. I guess at some point you could have robots building nuclear power plants, but some of these new data centers are taking more power than an entire city to run these AI models. That's insane. So I think they'll always need humans for break fix and power
Absolutely.
generation, I would think. But I like next gen. If I had to pick a future, I think Star Trek Next Generation.
Think about it this way, right? If you have walking robots, they could be useful for getting the landmines in countries where they got problems, or they could go
mining,
under like volcanoes and understand what causes them. I mean, like mines, for example, a lot of humans have been doing it for like hundreds of years, like getting stuff out. If mines can be automated using live robots, then you don't have to send humans with a canary in the coal mine and like figure out what happens. So those kinds of things can be automated, and they are like making human lives better. And maybe the humans will still be in front of a computer guiding the robot in a sense if they make mistakes, rather than us getting into the line of fire. And so I think I see a bright future as long as humans have still got the agency and don't let the robot out of hand, so to speak.
Yeah,
I think we'll still be in the driver's seat, and I see a huge bright future for humanity. And like I said, I'm an optimist, and
I love your optimism. I do think there's a non-zero chance of like drone wars and robot clones from like Star Wars. But that's all right. Hopefully we can continue to not use those options as we go forward. Well, thank you both so much for the time. It's been an awesome discussion, super fun. Time flies when you're talking about cool things. So I'll give you one last shot here. How can you help us, or how can we help you? I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. I think, Mike, firstly, thanks a lot for hosting this. John and I are super excited to come on to your podcast. Our company, as we mentioned, is www.crigloo.com, CRIGLOO.com. We help small businesses and marketers augment their leads, get revenue, and make their marketing expense go down. We are not here to replace humans. We are a human assist product, and we also can help you with campaigns if there is any kind of help. But at the end of the day, we want to promote small business as a fellow small business owner. And if you guys need help, ping us. More than happy to help a fellow small business owner. Thanks for the opportunity.
Awesome. I think that's great. Go find them, Crigloo.com. Again, Badri, Veera, and John Karl, thanks for being on the show. For more information on Avenue 9, go to avenue9.com. We are a high volume content marketing agency. So you want to help leverage the AI tools to start a podcast, write a book, engage your social media audience, create a whole bunch of personalized ad campaigns and stuff. Reach out to me for a strategy consultation. I would love to talk to you. Until next time, keep going and have some fun, everybody. Have a good one.